Do good, Mavericko here. Welcome to podcast episode number 107. I thought I'd just jump on and talk a bit about Parkinson's law when it comes to productivity and effectiveness. That can be of great help. I think the first place I learned about Parkinson's law was in this book by Timothy Ferris, The 4 Hour Work Week. A lot of people that hear about the 4 Hour Work Week think it's about a book that promotes idleness and laziness and sitting on a beach and doing nothing. That's not what the book is about. It's a lot of effectiveness and productivity advice in that book, which is super solid. There are some things in the book that I don't agree on, but when it comes to productivity advice, a lot of it is solid stuff. And yeah, Parkinson's law is basically a law or an idea or a concept that there's different sayings online of what it of what there is different definitions, so to speak. But it's basically the idea that work expands as to fill the time allotted for its completion. So if you have 8 hours to do something, it takes 8 hours. That's basically Parkinson's law. That work expands to fill the time that you have allotted for its completion. So if you have 5 weeks, it usually will take 5 weeks. But if you set another deadline for 2 weeks, it will take 2 weeks. Now, of course, if you take this to the extreme, it's not going to work. But oftentimes, and especially when it comes to so-called knowledge workers, office workers, that kind of thing, it often applies to an extreme degree. And how can you apply this? Well, use deadlines. If you set a goal for yourself, something you are planning to achieve, set a deadline. Because if you have no deadline, it's probably going to take a lot more time than if you had a deadline. And I heard it someplace else. I'm not sure what that law or what that concept was called. Right? I think if I remember it correctly, it was like this: that when you have a deadline to do something, 80% of the task will be completed in the 20% of time that is left at the end. So if you have 10 days to do something, 80% of the task is going to get done in the last 2 days. You have to do that task. I'm not sure what that concept was called, but for many things, I think it's pretty accurate. Of course, it does not apply to everything. If you're building a house, I don't think you're going to build 80% of the house in the last 20% of the time. But it applies to a lot of things, especially when it comes to so-called knowledge work or office work, because there's a lot of multitasking and wasting of time going on. Yeah, I don't know exactly what that concept was called, but I think it's oftentimes the case. But then if that's the case, then if you don't have a deadline, will that last 20% of time with a burst of super effectiveness? Will it ever come? If it is the case that sometimes 20%, I mean sometimes 80% of the work is being done in the 20% of the time you have left before the deadline. If that's the case, will you ever get that same burst of super effectiveness if you don't have a deadline? Or is it just going to be dragging out for days and weeks? And so Parkinson's law, deadlines, importance of deadlines. Now, I'm absolutely not an expert at this. I've been struggling with both setting and keeping my own deadlines for years, but I'm more talking from failure. I have experience with failing at this, so in that way I can talk from experience. But yeah, I think it's often extremely helpful to have deadlines. But yeah, Parkinson's law. If you have some things you are planning to do, some goals, plans, maybe you should set a deadline for yourself. Or if you have other people working for you, or maybe you're hiring a freelancer or a virtual assistant to do something for you, maybe you should set a deadline so that things don't end up dragging out unnecessarily. Anyway, I just thought this might be something that can be of help when it comes to productivity, effectiveness. Yeah. Parkinson's law. Work expands to fill the available time. Anyway, there we have it. Parkinson's law. I mentioned the book, The 4-Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss. Now, the 4-hour work week. Is it just a scam? Is it really possible to work only 4 hours per week? Now, I'm not promoting idleness, just to be clear on that. Hard work is good, laziness is bad. I'm not dreaming about only working 4 hours per week myself. But the thing is, the concept is still really exciting. That it is possible. Because even if you want to work a lot, there's probably going to be periods in life where something like semi-passive income, working like 1 to 15 hours per week could be extremely practical. And the thing is, the last few weeks I've been interviewing a bunch of people that have paid communities and are making at least $10,000 in profit per month. And one of the guys I interviewed was a guy from Germany, and these days he was actually working less than 4 hours per week and profiting about 18,000 euros per month. Pretty exciting stuff. And in his case, it was really practical because his mom was sick. She had cancer. So these days he was spending a lot of time with his mom, helping her out with things like hospital appointments, things like that. So yeah, if you want to learn from those real life success stories of paid communities and some of the concept of semi-passive income, go to communitycashcows.com. All right, take care and God bless.